Cloudcast Media.
Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest-running community podcast in our 20th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. 60 years of doing great things in San Diego County, whether it's in the art or whether it's in education, financial literacy, food insecurity. They're just great partners. We are so pleased to have in the studio with us today the David Harp's Foundation. Brandon Steppe is the founder and a Prebys Leadership Award winner. Congratulations to you, Brandon.
Thank you.
Joined by your colleague, Adrian Cantero, Community Engagement Manager and a graduate of the program. So, Adrian, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Excited to be here.
We're just thrilled to have you joined by my co-host, Kristen Fogel, in the third plus years of co-hosting the Spotlight on the Community Show, which I'm very grateful for that. She is the executive director of San Diego Writers Inc. Kristen.
Amazing.
Yeah. So let's go back a little. Let's talk about the inception of the organization, and then we can get into what the mission is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So first off, congratulations, 20 years of running a podcast.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
Hard to believe. And so
Yeah,
all that proves that if I can do it, anyone can do it.
No,
So,
come on. There's talent to that. No, so garage turn recording studio in Southeast San Diego. So I stepped out of a corporate job and, I just was like, if ever there's a time as a 26-year-old that I'm going to try this recording studio thing, it's going to be now. And in the process of creating that studio, young people from the community saw me building it, and they were very curious. They wanted to get into that space, especially as it started to really come to fruition. So I allowed them to come into that space. And initially, there's a young man named Ray Vaughn who knocked on the garage door. And so I'm like, all right, look, guy, I'm busy. I'm trying to start a business here, right? So he's like, well, I got to get in there. I said, okay, cool. After school tomorrow, I need you to be here, right? 3:00. He's like, all right, cool. So he shows up at like 3:45, and I'm like, hey, you missed it. Like, I said 3:00, you're late. He's like, give me one more chance. So I gave him one more chance. I said 3:00 tomorrow. So the next day he comes, and he's there at like 2, and I'm like, okay, dude, you're early, but I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So 3:00, we get started, and then it turns out that he didn't get out of school till 3:30. So, but what that showed me early is just that the power of the platform of music and music production and creation with youth. And so from that, I started allowing these young people to come into the space. I allowed them to trade their good grades for recording studio time. And so we started this deal. It was like, okay, if you get an A, you can have an hour. If you get a B, 30 minutes, C, nothing,
That's
D,
awesome.
nothing, F, nothing. And so that was really the origin of the idea of bringing young people into a recording studio. But it really was a traumatic moment in my life that started me down the path of learning how to really walk with young people in a deeper way. My wife was experiencing a traumatic pregnancy where she was diagnosed with bilateral cyst on her ovaries during the pregnancy. And these young people were still coming to the studio. She was hospitalized, and I was going back and forth from the studio to the hospital. And then one day, with a group of young men, I just broke down in tears, and they were just like, okay, dude. I was like, yeah, I'm really struggling. And then one by one, they started to really tell me what was going on in their life. And I started to earn my first relationship with a young person, a first mentoring relationship, which is an interesting concept, right? This weak moment bred this transparency and trust in young people. And so that was our first pillar, really, of our community and the practice of walking with young people and using art as a platform. So yeah, so that's the origin of David's Harp.
That's a great story. What instruments do you play?
So jazz saxophonist by trade, tenor, mostly tenor, some alto. School of Performing Arts down in the South Bay.
SCPA.
Cool.
SCPA.
Nice.
A graduate of SCPA. So, but the recording arts I really picked that up in college, just making a few extra dollars and turned my dorm room into a recording studio. So,
Well, did you major in music at USF?
no, at USF I was a business major.
Well, that's a great combo.
Yeah, it kind of was. Especially then, right? Because recording studios were a little more rare, so to be able to put that together in a dorm room was special.
Right. So, Adrian, how did you find out about Brandon and the David's Harp Foundation?
Yeah, so I got in touch with David's Harp through really one of my family members. He grew up on the same street as one of my artist mentors at the studio, Rashad, and they both kind of found out that I made beats, and my uncle was like, hey, we want to get him in the studio. And I was a kid coming from the South Bay, and I found myself at a studio door and walking in and met Brandon on the first day and walked into a recording studio. And that was kind of, as much as I loved music, I never really had access to a recording studio like that as a teenager or as a high school student. And that's kind of where my journey started at the David's Harp Foundation. And it's been a decade now. And it's been a lot going on. And now I'm here after going through professional music production. So I did that for the last decade after I graduated the program. Got to tour the country, got to hit Billboard charts and the whole red carpet award shows and stuff. And I'm grateful for that opportunity because I leveraged my skills that I gained, but I'm back to serve the community. And that's where I know I'm supposed to be.
So, how did the name David's Harp come out?
That was my question. Yeah.
You can ask it then.
Where did the name come from?
You got the magic here.
Yeah, you call it magic. I call it something else, but that's fine. Yeah. Same thing.
I can make her disappear if you'd like. So.
So I'm a man of faith, and what I got a chance to see with these young people was, they were struggling with the day. The young man, Ray Vaughn, that I mentioned, single mom, contemplating gang membership in the local gang, and I got a chance to see him come into the recording studio and just be a kid. And it's like the power of music was doing that. And so it's an allusion to the Bible where David plays, the biblical David plays a harp and the torment leaves a king. Mm-hmm. And I got a chance to really see that in this young man. And then I named it Foundation because I had no clue about nonprofit, and that foundations gave money.
It sounds great, yes.
there's always that. But yeah, it's just I didn't know any other way to describe what I was seeing as young people interacted with music. And now we get to see that all the time in the juvenile justice system, working with young people in homelessness, and yeah.
Yeah, as Krista knows, we're chatting with Brandon Steppe, founder of the David's Harp Foundation, joined by his colleague Adrian Cantero, community engagement manager and a graduate of the program. That music makes the world go round, and the story in this area, as Krista knows, because I bother with her this too much. I can listen to music between now and never stop for the next 4 billion years. I've been honored to go and lucky to go to the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival. I'll be doing my 37th visit next month. And I think we all know it's an equalizer. Yeah. It levels the playing field. I know Kristen's in the arts as well. Mm-hmm. She directs plays, she acts, and all that.
Well, I grew up singing jazz like my entire life, so yeah.
Exactly. So, just talk about, I'll start with you on this, Adrian, then pivot over to Brandon, in this. When you work with music, it doesn't make a difference where you come from, what you look like, where you've been. It just brings people together. Talk about that.
It really does. And that's where it started for me as a young person. I just knew that I knew the power of music. When you played a certain chord, it would feel a certain way, or there's a certain rhythm, or that song that comes on, automatically kind of you think of different things. And so I've been able to see that now magnified with relationships. So when I'm going into juvenile hall, or when I'm sitting down with the young person in the studio, that music, the making of the music, is really just it brings together a relationship when you're creating something, and especially music. And so that's to me, I've been able to experience music not only as a consumer, but also in production, and also the relational aspect of what that brings. And you see that sometimes with artists and producers, and the relationship that they have. And so we get to do that with young people. And so it's really so powerful.
Yeah.
Well, and when one young person here, I'm preaching to the congregation, obviously, finds his or her voice, and that's what Kristen is all about with the writing, and of course, obviously, with her background too. It's about voice and giving people a voice. Nothing makes you feel more belonging than when you feel like you have a voice in that aspect of it. I think it's absolutely critical. Kristen, you got a question for Brandon?
I do, yeah. I want to kind of go back to this Prebys Foundation Leadership Award. Sure. Can you talk about that? And again, congratulations.
That's
so
big
great. Yeah,
thank you.
Deserved.
It was a shock.
Yeah,
I got a call from Grant Oliphant, who's
awesome and runs the world. Yeah,
great guy. And I was shocked. I really was. There's so many really just legends in our community, leaders. And so I was a little shocked by that, man. After 17 years of walking with young people and just serving our community locally, I was very, very humbled and honored to even be mentioned amongst leaders in the community that way.
And not many, right? I mean, there are not many recipients.
Yes,
so
five.
Yeah,
five.
That's
total.
incredible.
Yeah, thank you.
And so, what does that designation sort of mean? How does that elevate you?
Sure. So currently, we talked a little bit about music, and music does have that power, right? To earn a relationship. I don't think there's a more powerful platform to stand on. There's a group of young ladies right now at the Youth Transition Campus that we're helping to bring back into community, and today they have a listening party, right? So these young ladies have been through a whole lot of stuff in life, but you should see the smiles on their face as they write that into a song. It's a complete, it's really just cathartic.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, they're earning a relationship. Our director of programs, Joseph Mack, is earning a relationship with these young ladies. And so when they come back into community, they're coming back into a different community. Yeah. So for me, that's the jumping off point in our organization. Really what we've built on top of that. Oh, you should see it. And Adrian's generation is really leading the charge. But 2017, a group of young people came to me. They said, hey, we want to make money. We've learned these skills. Adrian was just about leaving the community to do music. And I was like, okay, you want to make money? What do you want to do? They're like, well, we want to make music videos. And I was like, okay, well, do you want to make music videos or do you want to make money?
Yeah.
It's an important conversation to have with the young person.
100%.
And they're like, well, we want to make money. So we started off on a journey to do corporate video, because you can make money doing corporate video in San Diego. And we sat the local creative economy down and figured out where these young people could fit into the market. And what it turned out was that there's a gap between about $2,500 to about $5,000 just before you start getting major, major minor production companies, and just above the weekend warriors, where these people could actually, young people could sit in that space in the market and make video. And so we trained them for 2 years. That group of 3 young people, Jesus, Nat, and David, went out and they launched their company in 2020 called Warehouse Media. COVID hit in 2020. And then through that year, they made about $70,000 doing video.
Yeah.
And so now we have this group of young people that have created their own ecosystem of small business. They did about $400,000 in business last year. And it's this jumping off point that led to a bigger community asset almost in this small business ecosystem. So it's pretty cool. Like, I never thought music would be able to do that. And as a leader, to tie in the Prebys thing, it's really about listening, right? Listening to young people and their needs, not pushing them away and saying, okay, kid, yeah, well, we're a music program. This is what we do. But just walking with them and journeying with them. And so if there's an archetype for leadership in my life, it really is about that listening, loving, and serving. And so,
it's funny you say that, and I want you to hold that thought when we come back from break, because our previous guest brought that up as well when we continue the conversation with Brandon Steppe, the founder of the David's Harp Foundation and a Prebys Leadership Award winner, joined by his colleague Adrian Cantero, Community Engagement Manager for the foundation. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest-running community podcast in our 20th year, brought to you by the fine folks at Mission Fed Credit Union, joined by my co-host, Kristen Fogel. She's the executive director of San Diego Writers, Inc., and we'll be right back after this short break.
When you do your banking with Mission Fed, you get great rates on auto and home loans. That's good for you, but something good also happens for a lot of other people. We're not for profit, so we put money back into the community to help lots of great nonprofits to keep San Diego strong. So you're not just getting something good, you're doing something good. Come to Mission Fed. It's banking that's good for all.
Brand amplification is the DNA of Cloudcast Media, and our code is the powerful blending of sound, voice, and storytelling to lift local brands and their communities. Whether it is our Brandcast, Schoolcast, or Causecast platforms, the unifying ethos is all about this community, the one you call home. If you dare to dream and want to explore the brand amplification of Cloudcast, a national leader in local podcasting and other Winfluence strategies, please visit us at cloudcast.us.
I'm Drew Schlosberg, Cloudcast Media, listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. So honored to have in the studio with us today the David's Harp Foundation. And Brandon Steppe, the founder, is a Prebys Leadership Award honoree, joined by his colleague Adrian Cantero, Community Engagement Manager, and honored to have as my co-host in her third year. Very appreciative of this is Kristen Fogel, Executive Director of San Diego Writers, Inc. Before I turn it back over to Christopher, some questions on it. We had a gentleman on earlier, just a really brilliant guy, Stephen Minix, talking about metrics and working with nonprofits. And you got to check his judgment because he actually listened to one of my previous podcasts where I always focus on listening. Mm-hmm. I know Kristen's heard this quite a bit. We stink at listening. Mm-hmm. We're good at hearing, but we stink at listening. Mm-hmm. And you really have to get into it. So when you brought that up, that was just absolutely spot on.
Oh, thank you.
How can you not engage with people if you're not a good listener? Kristen, all yours.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, kind of just, I don't know, taking off from that. This is the part where I want to geek out to some of your programs.
Let's do it.
So like what have you developed after listening to the community?
Right.
So yeah, I think I heard you say something about like Juvie earlier.
Yes.
And so what are some of these programs?
Yeah. So really what we've listened to the young people and learned is that there was a couple requirements that they needed in mentors. One, be in a nonprofit, right? Like if you're really going to walk together, they needed economic engine.
Yeah.
They needed a real like way to enter into the community, right? That economic engine could be that, but also they needed a space where they can develop their voice and learn and be heard, right? So all of the programs are founded by young people. Just as it's not even like we designed it that way, but just listening to young people, they became founders of these programs. I mentioned a little bit about the group of young people that set out on that journey to learn corporate video. Well, now that's the Business Pod or Biz Pod program. And so young people in that program have enter into video production. They're learning how to tell their own story first in what's called a process of change video. They're learning but linear-based editing, production methods, and then capture. We're sponsored by Sony, so they have Sony cameras and cinema-grade cameras to work with. That program, in the first year they're learning that. The second year they launch off into a second phase, which is a contractor phase, where they're learning how to be independent contractors and they're building a client book. So as an organization, we had to make a decision really quick. Are we going to, do this revenue generating opportunity for our own organization, or were we going to help kids keep the clients that they're earning for themselves and create this ecosystem of small business? Obviously, it's the second, because that ecosystem of small business outlasts the nonprofit's ability to be able to provide opportunity. And so what happened then is, as a result, we have these 7 businesses that have been launched that are hiring other young people. And so that program, BizPod program, that 2 years now has been retroactive back into juvenile hall, where we're walking with young people experiencing incarceration and bringing them now back into community with not just jobs, but into an ecosystem that's hiring their selves, right? It's only, you could only do that by listening. I could no way design that.
Yeah,
there's no question about that. So, Adrian, go back in time, okay, before you met with Brandon and the David's Harp Foundation. How has it changed you? What skill sets have you grown with it? I'm sure confidence comes with it also. But now, fast forward to where you are now from where you were before you met this wonderful human being.
Yeah. Before I met Brandon and the David's Harp Foundation, I was a very quiet, timid kid that just loved music. I wanted to be on my laptop making beats all day. And over the years, being around David's Harp and being around my mentors, they've really walked me into spaces that I never thought I would ever be in. And if you would have told me right now, if you would have told me back then that this is what I would be doing, I'd be like, no, you're wrong. But we were just having a conversation about this morning. I know that I'm truly walking in what I'm supposed to be doing today because of these guys, but they brought me into real meetings. Brandon would be like, hey, I'm about to do this meeting. Let's go. And do you want to come with me? And I'm like, there was no other adult in my life that was professionally walking me into places like that. And I've learned a lot over the years. And, but I'm just grateful for the leadership being able to walk into spaces that I never really would have had access to.
Because what you're going to do is the same thing to some other young person, if you've probably already done it 10 times over,
Yeah.
And now, and this stuff works. It's exponential, and heaven forbid that other person. And, and Kristen and I talk about this quite a bit. You're not just changing that one kid, the one youth, you're changing their whole family and their whole orbit. Yeah. It's their siblings, it's their parents, it's their aunts, their uncles, their guardians, their pets. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah.
But,
the pets are certainly happier.
The pets are happier.
Yeah.
I know that for a fact because this wonderful woman sitting next to me, this co-host, got to pet sit my dog when I was gone. And she, now the dog does not want anything to do with me. When is Kristen coming back over there? Getting back to this, though, I'll start with you on this, Adrian, and then, certainly can add to it. And Kristen, just, jump on as well. What can we do? What can our listeners do to support the David's Harp Foundation?
Yeah, I think, one, they got to see it. So I would love to have, I'm the one giving the tours, by the way. I would love to have more people come by and take a look at our space just to see what the community of young people are doing. It's pretty impactful. But other than that, I would love to just have a conversation and get to know people, listening. And, we have two ears and one mouth for a reason. So I would love to just have a conversation and come by the David's Harp Foundation.
Yeah. How about you, Brandon?
Well, for me, I'm a little more forward, right? So I have 5 years before I turn this organization over to the next generation of leaders and step down the executive director and hand that business card over. And it's really important to me to build the community assets needed for the next generation. And so we have a couple of legacy projects that we're working on. One is to get the 28,000 square foot building that we're working in to be able to create a space where these young people who are really, there's 225 young people in the justice space, in the justice system in our county. And that small group of young people with investment is either going to be a huge benefit to society or they're going to actually cost us. And so the investment of having a building where they're able to come, not just learn who they are to grow, but to meet the local community beyond nonprofit through an event space, through a co-working space, to merge these like worlds, right? that's my vision for the downtown space that we're in now on 16th and G. So that's a legacy project. And secondly, we're in the housing space. So the young people have access to a home called Transformation Home, where they're able to they're able to pay $500 a month in rent as they're in their BizPod program, earning money. All of that's kept for them in escrow for 12 months, and they get $6,000 back as first, last, and move-in on their own apartment. Mm-hmm. So we have these programs that have been put together that I need to expand and really settle like that. So those are my things.
With JCCS?
We do work with JCCS.
You work with my boy, Joseph Clevenger?
Yeah.
So Joseph, very close to us. He's on works with us at the Classroom of the Future Foundation. Christian, you probably remember him being on some of our shows. And the guy is stellar. He used to be a superintendent up in Bonsall. I can't think of a better human than this guy to be he's in the right position on this and working with the JCCS schools. It's just so critical. In fact, when I see Joseph next, I'm going to go ahead and mention that you were on the show and on that. How much do you interact with him? Do you see him quite a bit or not?
So Joseph Mack is our director of programs. Yeah. He's definitely interacting in JCCS world. So we're inside the facility with JCCS and in their community schools.
That's good. Kristen, any final comments?
I don't know. I just want to know all the things and know how the folks can help, and myself included. So I think it's so amazing what you guys are doing.
Right. Thank you. What's the website if people want to donate, they want to volunteer, they want to, how do they get a hold of you?
So www.davidsharpfoundation.org. It looks like davidsharpfoundation.org. And there you can connect there. You can definitely give there. But we are looking for the community to step forward, those people who are really looking to make a legacy for the kids that are really most in need. There's an African proverb that says that if we don't embrace young people with the warmth of the community, they'll burn it down to feel the warmth of the flame. And we see that. When you embrace a young person, it's an endless opportunity.
Yeah. It's such a no-brainer that it shouldn't be called a no-brainer. It should be, you gotta be kidding me if you don't understand this. And we all know what the end results are when you do that. You give somebody an opportunity, as you did, Adrian working with, and I love the story, working with Brandon and say, Michael, this is the first time an adult actually treated me like I was an adult, for God's sake. And you're going to be doing the same thing on that aspect of it.
The funny thing is now I'm a board member, so there's that.
My boss.
Exactly. But that's how that works, though.
Yeah.
But that's how that works. Well, listen, I can't thank you folks enough for coming in. Brandon, be thinking about when you make a return appearance with Adrian or whomever else on another graduate or so forth.
Sure.
And maybe we'll bring Joseph in with you. And
that'd be great.
He'll love to come in, and we'll take it from there. How's that sound?
That sounds amazing. Thank you for your service to the community.
Well, listen, it's my pleasure and honor as well, and congratulations on that great Leadership Award. Been chatting with Brandon Steppe, founder of the David's Harp Foundation and Prebys Leadership Award honoree, joined by his colleague Adrian Cantero, Community Engagement Manager. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. Thank you for listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, nation's longest running community podcast. So grateful to be brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. 6 decades of doing great things, and as always, Kristen Fogel. So appreciative that you co-host these shows with me, and to our audience, we hope you enjoyed the interview.
You've been listening to an episode of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego community. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.